Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I work with Two Rivers Bookstore and Weird Sisters Yarn in St. John's. We have here tonight Bill and Joe. They have new books out. They are both mystery authors, and I'm going to hand it over to them.
Well, so I'll go ahead and get started. Joe and I, we had the good fortune of living close together and being published by the same publisher right about the same time. His book came out a month before mine. We became friends through the course of, getting to visit bookstores and readings. And obviously now we're not going out into the wilds. We're sitting in our homes, being very safe. But we've got to know each other. And so hopefully this will enable us to put on a little bit of a good show here. Joe's book is River Run, and I'll let him talk about it, but I've read it, of course, and it's really great. It's really a fun read, and he's got a great character. And, so I'm very angry at him about that because, how dare he be, so talented on his first book. So, Joe, how about you? What do you have to say for yourself, you old troublemaker?
And likewise, I've read yours, and Crossroad is a page turner, from the start, and enjoyable read. That having been said, I dare much. And in terms of your book, I am wondering about one thing. By experience, Bill, wouldn't you agree that it's a bit of a trope having your protagonist come from such a wreck of a family? Isn't that a bit over the top? I mean, her brother's drowned, she's homeless, an abandoned spouse, and an abandoned daughter to boot. And who gets rescued? By an aunt-in-law, no less. How can that all possibly work?
Well, all I have to say for myself is, what do we do with our characters? We create them, we fall in love with them, and then we put them through the most miserable thing we possibly can, because that's what's fun, right? That's what makes it interesting. Melisande, and I will tell you that Melisande's name, it's an old French name. I named her actually after the Frankish Queen of Jerusalem from the Crusade states. Very weird, I know, totally random. When I named her, I just happened to be listening to a history podcast in which she came up a lot. And she's the original character is a fascinating character, a little scary, a little disturbing at times, as people were back then. But her I say Melisande because that's what's easy for me to say. In the French, it's more like Melisande. And I've had people tell me how poorly I pronounce the name of my own character. But, when I created her, one of the things that was real important to me was to give her a reason to be tough, but also to be vulnerable and compassionate. And I didn't want to follow sort of the same old story that, the horrible traumas that a lot of writers like to throw at women. Characters. It's really easy to do some of the stuff that has been done and I think overdone. And so, but at the same time, she comes out of a difficult parental background, and it's not because her parents were intentionally, cruel or abusive or anything like that. They were neglectful out of a sense of overwhelming grief. And a lot of what I try to explore in this book is the way people process grief. And their way of processing grief was not healthy. It wasn't good for them, and it wasn't good for her. It made for a very difficult childhood growing up. But one of the things that she took out of that was this sense of caring and a need to, to look out for other people. She's not always aware of it. But it is true. She lost her brother when she was very young, who saved her life in the process of drowning himself. Her parents had a very hard time dealing with that and were not able to show her the kind of caring that she needed growing up. And then her husband abandoned her, or maybe didn't. We don't actually know what happened to her husband. Hopefully we'll be able to explore that in a future book. But he disappeared and left her abandoned. And she was at her wit's end. And as you said, his aunt and uncle, some people who were not technically related to her at all and who they've never met, took her and brought her from the East Coast to Oregon to be an apprentice mortician. And from there, that was another decision I made. I thought, what's a way that somebody can get involved with dead bodies without, this a little non-traditional. So I ran with it from there. But speaking of women characters, you and I mean, both of us, pretty brazen. We're a couple of old grandpas who have written main characters who are young women. And you've done that too. And you've also got a character who's come out of a pretty dicey situation. Speaking of people who died in a river, and in a body of water, well, Delia, good grief, her family. I mean, that's pretty outrageous. How do you explain yourself, sir?
Well, for one thing, I dare considerably on that side of things. Yes, Delia has lost her baby brother, and her parents, come to think of it. And her older brother does happen to be incarcerated. There's a little bit iffy in terms of her family. And yes, and thinking on the shadow character in my book, he did run away from a profoundly abusive family. So that's a little bit. And yes, the killer is the product of a home operated like a Navy SEAL basic training site. So, but things happen in slightly troubled families. So yeah, we are on a par when it comes to dysfunctional families, I suppose.
Yeah, but one of the things I think is real interesting is our characters have so much in common. I mean, we did not know each other until our books were published. And dead little brother, Melisande's brother is a big brother, but dead brother, dead parents, or parents who are out of the picture. But what I think is interesting is her older brother's in jail, and yet she's a law enforcement officer. How did that happen?
Well, it happened in the way that she was in school, and she was in the jurisprudence and the legal, judicial, and law enforcement program at Western Oregon University. And she didn't realize she was being put through on money from his chop shop, but he got caught while she was just finishing the program. So away he goes down to New Mexico in prison there. And so she had a little bit of a rough time clearing herself when she applied for sheriff's deputy at Polk County. So there were some concerns that she had all this while about her family. But in River Run, she gets a boost to begin with in her career path toward making detective by solving an apparent dual suicide that turns out to be a dual homicide. So she essentially got her goal going and got past these issues with her family past by doing very well at detective work. Case closed? Not when waterfowl hunters turn up dead on the banks of the Willamette. Accidentally drowned? Not when newly minted Detective Chavez discovers they're missing their trigger fingers. Easy solution? Not unless Delia confronts her potomophobia and irrational, nauseating fear of rivers. Of course, that's where all the investigation has to go.
Right.
So those are pretty much the inciting incidents and the main issues setting the groundwork for this mystery.
Right.
Do you each have a passage picked out to read, or did you want to continue the banter?
Well, let me. I can pick this puppy up. I love this cover. You never know when you're the author whether you're going to get a good cover or a bad cover, an indifferent cover. And I was really thrilled with this cover when the publisher sent it to me. It really captures kind of the essence of the book. So So you're going to show yours to us, Joe?
Sure. River Run, same publisher, only about a month's difference in terms of their release dates, which was late last fall.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I can go if you'd like.
Why don't you go first?
And this is the point where Delia has learned that she has made detective and is going to be promoted, and she's on her last day as a deputy in uniform. And it also kind of starts things off in terms of why each chapter begins with a time reference to waterfowl season. So this is opening day of waterfowl season. No damn peace. Delia cursed her luck in the morning before she was slated to become acting detective. Lights and sirens running, she floored her cruiser toward Buena Vista Marine Park while Kastner screamed at her over the radio. Kastner was another detective, another deputy. Shots fired, Chavez. Where the diddly fuck are you? Loud booms followed by the background racket of revving car and boat motors garbled his next words. Holy, spent birdshot, coming down like fucking hailstones, get here quick. An ancient van of many colors coughed and sputtered past her, belching blue-black smoke. Moments later, cars stampeded from the fog-bound park as she entered and screeched to a halt near the bottom of the boat ramp. So close to the river of her nightmares that she froze in her seat. Kastner's blue streak faded into earmush. There he stood, ankle deep in water and the aftermath of chaos. The stink of bird poop, chicken maybe, tainted the air that wafted through her open windows. Yellow plastic buckets rolled in the backwash of camouflage-painted hunting boats hightailing downriver. Discarded anti-hunting signs littered the ramp, an emptied parking lot. And the strangest of all, behind those hunters, a large watercraft slinked after them. Rounded hulls with sides painted in a serpentine pattern, it reminded her of the tropics, its driver of something, fleeting, then gone. The boat seemed to gather mist, a cloaking veil that made Delia doubt what she was seeing. The dark-toned man standing behind the steering console cut a Captain Ahab-like figure, overused but accurate, she thought, in his long black coat. The resemblance to that fictional character in the bow of a whaleboat was striking. The forward lean, the jutting chin, his fixation on the fog ahead. She half expected a white whale to breach the surface. Chavez, you hearing me? Kastner splashed toward her, his voice veering upward, close to soprano. Can't miss hearing or smelling you, she answered. Anyone hit? Injured? Don't know. Don't think so. Both groups split so fast, I secure your weapon and calm yourself. Opening her cruiser's rear door, she patted the seat and backed off from his barnyard odor, thinking she might as well get into AD mode. Take a minute, then give me a full rundown. So that sets the stage for possibilities in terms of leading into who and what had to do with the murders that follow. And those were all hunters, and they were all during hunting season. So it pretty much flows from that initial opening day hunting protest and actually accelerates from there.
Right. Yeah, it gets pretty wild. I mean, there's so much, action and adventure. And Joe has talked about how he started out to write kind of a swashbuckler story, and it has a lot of that in it, even though it is very much a mystery. And there's a complicated crime that has to slowly be discovered. But throughout that, there's a lot of incredible action. really, really amazing and a lot of fun.